Thanks for taking the time to watch this AgWRAP 2020 update video. The intention of this video is to share some of the updates and changes that have been made in AgWRAP for the upcoming year. In this video, I will provide guidance on the updates that were made to the water supply well policy. I will give a brief summary of the 2020 allocations, and finally, I will highlight the changes we made to the average cost list. Let's start with the updates to the water supply well policy. The well policy was reviewed by a well work group. The group made some recommendations for changing the policy. The existing well policy was then edited to reflect the changes recommended by the work group. The revised policy was presented to the AgWRAP Review Committee for feedback and to get their recommendations. The committee recommended presenting the policy revisions to the Soil and Water Conservation Commission for approval. I presented the policy to the Commission in July, and they approved it with no changes. The new policy is now available on the division website. The changes to the policy included clarifying some language and providing more detail regarding wellhead protection, freeze protection, and pump repairs. All these clarifications can be seen on the new policy. The most significant and impactful changes to the policy are in regard to the job approval authority requirements for wells. Essentially, we removed most of the language in item 12, specifically the parts requiring job approval authority, and replaced it with items 13, 14, 15, and 16. I'm not going to read these verbatim. You can go back and read them yourself. What these policy changes mean is that job approval authority is no longer needed for design approval and no longer needed for construction approval for wells and pumps installed by a certified well driller, any well, livestock, irrigation, or otherwise, so long as it is installed by a North Carolina certified well driller. Instead of requiring job approval authority, we are relying on the expertise of a certified well driller to properly site and size a well and pump according to its planned use. So now, instead of having to have job approval authority or an engineer to approve the well design, a correctly completed site evaluation sheet will suffice as design approval. These site evaluation sheets have been updated recently and are available on the division website. There are two separate sheets, one for irrigation well sites and one for livestock well sites. One of the sections in the site evaluation sheet provides a list of the required documentation needed for planning a well. These documents must be completed as part of the design approval process. Checking the boxes on the site evaluation sheet is an acknowledgement that these documents have been completed. These documents include operation and maintenance plans for both the well and pump, a GIS map showing the location of the proposed well, a water well job sheet, and a well systems diagram. An NRCS Cultural Resources Review must be completed, and any local or state permits need to be completed if they are required. All these documents will be available on the division website. When it comes time to submit the contract for approval, the following materials are required to be uploaded to the Reference Materials section in CS². The 11 signature page with all applicable signatures, the completed site evaluation sheet, a conservation plan, and a map that shows the location of the BMP. The BMP map must also include nearby roads so we can tell where the site is located. At the time of contract approval, the following materials should be in the contract folder: copies of all the material uploaded to CS², the O&M plans, job sheets, well diagram, NRCS Cultural Review documentation, well permits if required, and any field notes. So when it comes to filling out the NC AgWRAP 11 signature page, if you do not have the appropriate job approval authority for the well being contracted, you will simply sign the 11 form as the technical representative, then fill out the job approval authority line with a statement saying, "See the attached site evaluation sheet." Similar to design approval, instead of having to have job approval or an engineer to check out and approve a constructed well, a completed water supply well checkout sheet and a well construction record filled out by a certified well driller will serve as construction approval documentation. For RFP approval, you will have to upload the water supply well checkout sheet, the well construction record, and any receipts to the reference materials section in CS². On the signature page of the 3 form, you will sign as a technical representative, then fill out the job approval authority line with a comment saying to see the attached well checkout sheet and GW1. That's it. Hopefully these changes to the well policy will make planning and installing wells a little easier and more streamlined. All right, let's move on to the next item on the list, 2020 allocation summary. In this section, I just wanted to give you a brief summary of the AgWRAP allocations for this year. To start, I'd like to provide an overview of the funding requested for AgWRAP in the district strategy plans. In this table, the funding requests have been summarized by practice. This year, similar to years in the past, wells were the most requested practice, followed by new ponds, then pond repairs. In total, 92 districts requested nearly $7.3 million for AgWRAP practices. This is the most districts that have requested funds, and the largest amount of funds requested in program history. This is a good thing in my opinion. I think it shows that there continues to be an increased need for AgWRAP funding. Unfortunately, we do not currently receive an appropriation capable of meeting all these requests. But I think the number of requests and the amount of funding requested can be used to demonstrate need and hopefully influence the growth of the appropriation in the future. But for this year, this is what our actual funding looks like. We have $1,391,980 available for BMP funds. In AgWRAP, we divide that funding into two separate funding pools. A percentage of those funds will be used for district allocations, and the remaining funds will be used to fund regional application projects. This year, it was decided to use a 70-30 split to divide the funds, with 70% going to district allocations and 30% going to the regional applications. The amount of funds in the regional application pool will allow us to fund at least 16 projects at $25,000 each. I'll talk about the regional application process in more detail in another presentation. As for district allocations, the minimum allocation this year for all districts that requested funds is $7,500, unless a district specifically requested less than that. The average allocation this year is $10,591, and the largest allocation was $47,535. In this year's district allocation, 48 districts received larger allocations than what they received last year. These allocations have been made to all districts that requested funds and are currently available to be encumbered to contracts in CS squared using the AG funding source. I also wanted to point out that the Commission approved just-in-time reallocations again for this year. This means that any AgWRAP funds that are canceled or returned to the division can be reallocated to districts that request additional funding. Districts may voluntarily return AgWRAP funds anytime throughout the year, and this is without penalty. Returning AgWRAP funds does not affect your future allocations. So if you know you won't be able to use your funds, please return them so they can be reallocated to districts that can use them. Districts may start requesting additional funds beginning February 1st, 2020. The request will be made through FormSite, and the funding must be requested for a specific project that is ready to move forward. This system has been very successful in the past. Last year, we were able to reallocate nearly $200,000 of returned and canceled funds to projects that needed additional funding. I will send additional reminders out regarding this process as we get closer to February. I just wanted you to be aware that there will be an opportunity to request additional AgWRAP funds later this year. Next on the list are the updates we made to the average cost list for this year. We made two changes to the cost list this year. We revised the cost type for conservation irrigation conversion and micro-irrigation from average cost to actual cost. These changes were made based on feedback from districts about how the average costs were not aligning well with the actual cost paid by cooperators. It seems like the wide variety of irrigation equipment, system sizes, and row spacing weren't reflected well by the previous average costs. So now, we will be basing cost share for these practices on actual costs with receipts. Here are how these practices look in the updated cost list. Unit type for both is per job, with maximum payments of $25,000 at 75% cost share and $35,000 at 90%. Any components that would be needed to implement these systems are eligible for cost share as part of the job. Pumps, piping, tubing, filters, fittings, anything that is required. You would just need to include the items in the receipt and be able to justify their need. As a reminder, both practices are for conversions. The cooperator must have an existing system and be converting to a more efficient system, whether it's from a traveling gun to a more efficient center pivot, or from hand watering or overhead sprinklers to micro-irrigation. These practices are not intended to fund systems for producers who are not already irrigating. We are hoping that with the new cost share rates, you may be able to encourage more cooperators to implement these practices. I would encourage you to promote these practices to your cooperators. I think it would be great if the AgWRAP program started funding more practices that improve water use efficiency. Okay, that's all I've got for now. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was helpful. As always, if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to call or email me. My contact information is on the screen. Once again, thanks for watching.